All right, there we go. Thanks, Danny. Appreciate that intro. All right, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm all the way here from San Francisco, California. And, running remote has always had a special place in my heart. I've been watching the whole running remote evolution and all the different events they've been putting on. I wanted to go to Montreal, and finally I had an opportunity to come here, and I was like, yes, I am all over that. I want to join this family and dive in deep. So here I am. And I guess I've been a remote enthusiast for a long time. Probably 30 years I've been working remote, either at my home as a programmer, or even in 1999 starting Couchsurfing, and then building collectives all over the world and people coming together, being in person, and then scattering off around the world and being remote, and then being remotely in person temporarily, and then scattering and reiterating, and then eventually getting an office in Soma. And so, I've just been seeing what sticks, what works, what gets us together in a way that we can really do great work, we can solve the hard problems of the company, and be psyched about it, and not kind of scatter away like little monkeys that just disappear, or cats that I have to herd back in and get psyched to keep working on the project, at least Couchsurfing in that case. So I built Couchsurfing, I built Wonder, I built Upstock now, all fully remote, but then have had elements of being in person. And I would say that over the course of that time, I've just kept thinking about the challenges of am I going to have to do all the work myself, especially in the early days, or can I inspire people to really want to take on that ownership and want to do just as much, own it and own the problems, own the hard problems, the solutions, like I have to every day, hold the bag, so to speak. And this really came to be when we built Couchsurfing up to a few million members. We finally got investment. We moved to Silicon Valley, and we said, well, I guess, office time, right? Series A, it's office time. So we got this really cool office in Soma, and we had some of the best investors at Benchmark, and we had some of the best lawyers that you could ever imagine. Steve Venuto, he was Lawyer of the Year for the Instagram deal right around that time, and he had done Facebook's equity. And I thought, I'm so excited because he is going to help us do this equity thing. I'm not sure how it works. I'm not sure what it does, but I know it's going to be good because people are going to have ownership. Something about that, I know that's good because when people own something that gets things, they want to do more. It's kind of all I understood. So I said, Steve, hook us up. He gives us our stock option agreements. I say, here you go, everybody. It's stock options. And the workers are pretty smart people. They're from around the world. We brought 50 people from around the world to Soma. And they tried to figure it out. I said, I can't really tell you about it because I'm not really sure how it works myself. But I can't really tell you about it because of a conflict of interest. It's the lawyer thing. I don't know. And they came back to me and said, Casey, I think it's a scam. Why would I have to buy the equity? It seems really weird. I was like, well, yeah, I was kind of wondering that myself, actually. but I don't know what to tell you. This is the best of Silicon Valley. I can tell you that. It's the best. This is what they have. And so that really it shocked me because it just created this negative emotional response. When I wanted a positive emotional response, I wanted us to say, yes, not only do we believe in the mission and vision together, but we believe that we are all owners now, that we are in this together. But that had the opposite result. They started to think that it was, it's super, super demotivating, that it was, it ended up being kind of expensive to us, and it was expensive to them. They had to buy it, and then they ultimately just thought it was not trustworthy. And it did the opposite of what I was hoping it would do. And that was really, really difficult. So I went back to Steve, and he laughed. He'd done the Facebook equity system, and I said, they don't like the stock options. He said, yeah, it's the old technology. We got this better technology, but kid, you can't afford it. It's hundreds of thousands. It's our precious. And only top law firms know how to do this. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I was like, what are you talking about? We're a startup. We're going to figure this out. I'm sorry. So I basically said to my workers, what do you want? So we want to just see what we have. We just want to know what it is, see it, and understand it, trust it. Great. I'll put together a spreadsheet that shows what you got. And they said, that makes sense. Now I can see what my slice is, what the whole piece is, my piece, and then what that could be worth in the future if we succeed. All right, I understand it now. And then we also found these double trigger RSU documents that Facebook and all the other top companies had been using for $30,000 only. But put those together, attach it, and then lo and behold, that worked really well. And what really I started to notice, I started to really think about the game mechanics of this ownership thing and the game dynamics of helping people become cooperators. Because in Couchsurfing was a big cooperative model. It was I could see as a programmer and programming it all the data and what makes people cooperate more and what makes people cooperate less, what promotes the cooperators. And I started reading lots of books. Like Adam Grant actually interviewed me because of Couchsurfing when he was writing this book. And I really got to thinking, what makes people cooperate more? What makes people wanted to be more matchers, go from matchers to be givers, right? Because you can have certain people, if everybody's a giver, things will really thrive in a little community or a little economy of a company. So you want to boost these people up, and the more they believe that they're all in it together, the more they're going to be givers. So that really kind of got in my mind. I started thinking, okay, we want to make people feel more like givers. We want to be able to give them this equity, and now we have a way to do that. But what else? What else can we do? So vision, mission, values. Started, again, throwing things at the wall, throwing the spaghetti at the wall, seeing what would create more alignment, what would create making sure that we have an organization that's highly aligned, where people feel like we're super cooperators, we're all great, we're doing this for the honor of doing this, instead of an organization down here where you have low alignment, I'm great, people self-serving. You want to get to these other types of organizations when you start studying organizational dynamics. So here's Jason, of course. And then we started doing a lot more remote. Like at that point, we started going back to remote. So we had everybody there, and then we said, okay, we want to go back to the more remote model. So we still have the core people in SF, but we have a lot more people remote. So the tide keeps coming in and going out over the years. And I was really worried that the remote people get just more and more disconnected because they're not connected to the folks in the office. I was worried that I would communicate with them in a poor way, they'd be motivated, it would cost us a lot more money, have to hire more people, all the things that we know, of course, and that I would have to micromanage them because they were that much more disconnected from the core. And so I started thinking about, what do I got to put together? What are the most important things to keep all the remote people, especially, coming back for more, coming back, staying connected? And so I started to think of it as this meal that I was building. I wanted to put together a meal, and I wanted them to like it a lot. I didn't want them to think of it as spaghetti thrown at the wall, that I was chucking it in their mouth and hoping they would just, eat it up and like it. No, I wanted to create a nice, nourishing meal. What is in a nice, nourishing, remote first meal? Well, all the research I started doing, I started seeing that mission, vision, values, equity, those kinds of ownership, those are things we can own together. Those are things that we can get aligned on and feel excited about, that we're doing something good, that we're doing it together, that we're being respected. That's certainly like the pasta of the meal, I like to say. And then there's the sauce, the leadership, the communication, the company culture. There's all of these things that kind of make it bind it together, bind all that pasta together, yum, yum. And then, of course, you have all the important tools, all the things that help make all those things more efficient, and the secrets, maybe the secret spices. That you put all that together, and then some people will say, oh, this is a really good meal. I really like this. I want to come back for more. And then I was thinking, and so I started experimenting with these different elements. And what I learned is that when you have the right foundation in your meal, it is a force multiplier. Otherwise, if you don't have this, things can get kind of scattered. Things can start to feel like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall. And it's just, you're like, why isn't it working? And it can kind of be maddening. So in the core of this, I really found the ownership mindset. If done in the right way, it was night and day, because I got to experiment with different forms of equity and ownership and what they call as planned communication. How do you communicate that to workers? And that was pretty interesting to over the last 20, 30 years to try all of these things with different companies in different ways. And I kept coming back to this. And this is, if there's one thing in this whole talk that I want you to take away, this is it. This is it. This is the secret. And the secret is that, and it's probably kind of intuitive, but maybe it's just not clear. And here it is. Whatever we own, we identify with. It becomes part of our personal identity. Whatever we own, we identify with. And anything that we identify with, we naturally want to improve. It becomes a low-level, biological, exponential function. It's not linear, it's exponential. So when I own something, I get triggered when somebody says something good about it or bad about it. It's an extension of me now. So if I have a car, what kind of car do you have? Do you have a car? Who has a car? You have a car? What kind of car do you have? You have a Suburban, okay. I love Suburbans, by the way. Did I tell you? I just love they're so spacious. What color is it? I love white Suburbans, especially you must live in a warm area. It must reflect the heat. Yeah, it's nice, huh? Yeah. See? How do you feel about me now? You're awesome. See? Yeah, I'm awesome. But what if I told you I think those Suburbans, is it an EV? No, it's not an EV. Oh, it's not an EV. Yeah, I don't know about those people who have Suburban. Not the people, it's just a Suburban. I don't really like Suburbans that aren't EVs, actually, How do you feel about me now? Yeah, they don't like me. All right. So it's so funny. We have things that we externally identify with all the time. Here's our iPhone or our Android. If I tell you how great iPhones are, or, you trigger like an little emotional thing at a low level, right? You could maybe your wardrobe, maybe somewhere you live, your house. We identify with things all the time. And how we identify, or if we don't identify, or if we negatively identify with, we will find patterns in our environment that support our identities. So that's a really important thing, because when we have positive identification, that increases attraction. It increases people wanting to attract to our brand, our culture. People excited to tell other people, hey, you should come to my company, you should work here. It feels really good. I feel positively identified with this company. Or, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to be psyched, and I'm motivated because I'm an owner, I feel good about the company, and now I'm pattern matching on ways to make the thing that I own that is part of my identity better. And I'm not going to go anywhere because this is me. I'm not going to leave me. I'm going to stay with me. I'm going to stay with my people, all of us together. This is part of identity. So I think this is really important. This is a really important secret. So when workers have this ownership mindset, productivity increases, right? They're more committed to their tasks. They're more committed to the outcomes. They're more committed to the long-term viability of the company. And they don't just want it to be like a job, time for money. They really want to answer the hard problems and even disagree respectfully sometimes. And of course, innovation. When you have an ownership mindset and you are identified with great outcomes, you're going to be thinking about the problems of the company in the shower, laying in bed at night, on the way to work, if that exists for some people. Maybe that's just from your bedroom to your office at that point. It's a short thought. But yeah. And then, of course, people become proactive, creating new solutions. And that's gold. That's really what you want to survive in this ever-changing AI world that every day it's like double the amount of things you have to learn. Pretty wild. So yeah, when team members, when they're motivated, when they have an ownership mindset, it's part of their identity, they are motivated to solve the hardest problems. The hardest problems. And that's how the big tech companies like Google and Apple and all of them in Silicon Valley, you know what they call them at Google? They don't call it equity or anything. They call it Google units. Even though they're RSUs, they call them Google units or Facebook units at Facebook. I'm getting Google units. It's part of me. I'm part of this company. I can see myself ownership. And what they start doing is they start using dashboards and mobile apps and things where it's not just a set of legal documents that you sign, put in a drawer, and forget about, and you're like, what was that? What did I sign? I don't know. What does it do? I don't know. Am I going to get it something? I don't know. Maybe someday. It's just a job. It's a cherry on top. No. The way it's done with performance equity these days, this is the modern way it's done, is you want to associate somebody's identity with the identity of the company. And that is done through visuals. It's done through showing that and making sure that people can trust that they will get their equity, their fair share, if and when the company succeeds. They can see, here I am in the future. Wow, if the company 100x's, if it 10x's, 100x's, 1000x's, what would my slice be worth? And it just shows me, and it's not necessarily have to be about the money. It's about the identity. It's about feeling fair. It's about feeling respected. But if you're going to you stay a little bit later after work, put in that extra effort, well, you don't want to do that and be a fool. You want to do that and be like, no, hey, we're in this together. It's fair. We're gonna change the world. So, yeah, you need to use trustworthy legal docs. You need to have convenient mobile apps. You need to use all the tools you can to build the trust and make sure people know they will get their fair share. So, yeah, I would say at the end of all this, all of us, we don't want to offer just a job. It's not about just offering a job. It's about really inspiring hearts and minds. It's about unlocking the emotional. In this area, this type of equity, it's really emotional. We're trying to appeal to people's emotions. If you know thinking fast and slow, or system 1 and system 2, yes, we can appeal to the system, the neocortex, the logic brain, and that's if you're looking at a long set of legal documents that you're trying to figure out. And the logic brain often says no, or is very good at coming up with reasons why something it doesn't work, or you're not going to get your fair share. But the emotional brain, that's really what we're trying to connect with. We're trying to connect all of our emotional brains, all of them together, to do and solve hard problems. So, again, it just comes back to that encouraging that ownership mindset. So I think that is really the key. And I ask you to we're almost at the end where we can ask some questions and things, but I'd ask you to imagine what it would be like right now. Like, are you doing the best work of your life? What would it be like if you were doing the best work of your life because you and your team were so fired up? You know that all of you together are going to get your fair share. You can see what in the future, what you would be, what reaching certain milestones might be worth to you and the company and together. What would it be like to be doing the best work of your life? How would this change your company? What would your company be like if everybody felt like they were able to finally do the best work of their life? And what would the world be like if there was that much alignment where people could feel like they are doing the best work of their life, and we're all doing the best work of our life because they're supported to do so? I'd love to answer any questions. If anybody has any questions. Oops. All right.
No. Yes, I do. Okay, if you have questions, put them in we've got one in the crowd. I'm going to come to you, okay? Put them in the Bizzabo app. Everybody get your app out. Don't forget, the most engagement wins a Fly Anywhere prize. Can I ask the first question, though?
Please do.
I wish they'd put it on the board, because then we'd know that it was being asked by such a handsome, intelligent individual. How do employees and ICs drive this paradigm shift, right, as opposed to management? Right. How do you make this happen? Right, because it does make sense from a capitalization. It's like the convergence of sort of capitalization and motivation, right? How do you do it?
Well, I think there's a few things. First of all, is really believing that equity can make a difference in your life. Like, if you could join, you can look for companies that offer equity, and you can ask about, hey, is there equity? Is equity part of the offer? So putting that question back, that pressure on management to be thinking about that's important to you. It makes you look more sophisticated. Not a bad idea. And then that makes you, be more attractive as a candidate. So there's that right there. That's just simple right off the bat. And then I think it really comes down to, and you could use ChatGPT, not to bring up ChatGPT, but kind of have to. You could use ChatGPT to say, hey, what would be the typical amount of equity that I should receive for a Java programmer in Silicon Valley or Lisbon, whatever? You could just ask, and you'll see all the ranges right away. You can ask a question in a whole bunch of different ways, so you'll always know what is typical. Okay, a company of this size, or a company of this size, or this with this much revenue, whatever. You can fine-tune your questions. That's a great place to go to try to find out what those norms are. So I would say, really just kind of putting it back on management and asking, what's possible here. And I think that's where it starts. Also, of course, coming and visiting us at Upstock, we have tons of blog articles and tons of content, and happy to reach out to me, happy to share as much content or as much information as you need. But we're actually going to I'm having a whole interface pretty soon that helps employees figure that out. Also, if you're a contractor, why not? Same thing, And if you're an advisor, knowing what kind of equity to ask for can really make a difference. If you talk to any of the folks in Silicon Valley who have worked for both companies that are offering stock options and then RSUs, double trigger RSUs specifically, which are for private companies, time and time again, they'll always say, give me the RSUs. I hate stock options because you have to buy them later. And of course, you don't have the money, and you're like, will this company ever succeed? I don't know if it'll succeed. So the RSUs, you're more likely to get something in the end. RSUs, you don't have to buy. So it's my personal opinion and opinion of a lot of people, like Steve Blank, one of the founders of the Lean Startup, that RSUs, double trigger RSUs, are the way to go. So I would also say, ask about RSUs. RSUs are compatible in 75 plus countries for companies to put in stock options It's very difficult to do that. Each country is different, and the companies have to pay a lot. Each country they go to, it might be $5,000 or $10,000 of legal research. So RSUs are pretty much the same everywhere. So that's something to consider. We have questions?
Yep. Down here, we've got one in the audience right here, Casey.
Yes.
What's your name?
Mate,
Okay, I'm going to give you the mic. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with holding this, but I can trust you, okay?
how would you drive this change internally within the company from bottom to the top? So how do you persuade the managers to make this cultural / mind shift?
So let me ask you a couple of questions. Would this be in a company that has not issued any kind of equity yet, or has already issued equity because they believe in equity?
Let's just say that the equity is out of the question.
Equity's out of the question. Yeah, well, I think that comes back to the larger. Would you rather have a larger piece of a smaller pie, or a smaller piece of a much larger pie? And say that's really what it comes down to. When you have that many people that actually care about the outcomes, at the end of the day, that's going to win. You don't want to be outcompeted. What is the competition doing? If the competition is going to do something like this, instead of being a micromanaging, everything has to go through the founder. That's not a way to scale. You can't scale a company when you can't distribute decision making. You can't distribute decision making unless you have people that care.
Okay, there are a couple questions. For some reason, it's not coming up there. You mind if I just ask you, Casey?
Go for it.
Okay, this is a great one, actually, by Anonymous, which is really unfortunate. Would be offering a profit-sharing program for employees work for ownership as much as equity, right? Why equity versus profit sharing?
I think it can. I would look at it like this. A salary is time for money. It's usually a shorter term. Profit sharing can be a little bit longer because depending on when you're paying the profits, if it's 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, maybe that helps. It creates deeper alignment with what the company's goals are. But ultimately, usually equity creates the best alignment because it creates long-term alignment. And so instead of being kind of like on Wall Street where they get too much short-term decision-making, and you're just like, hey, more money, I'm going to cut corners and make decisions that will benefit me now with cash at the expense of the rest of the team and the rest of the company, maybe even the world. It is a bit different. So it really depends on how you structure your profit-sharing plan. If you structure it in the long term, maybe that approximates equity. Sure, that could be. If it's over years maybe, or at least a year.
Yeah, I mean, equity isn't just valuable at an exit, right? Equity is valuable throughout the life of a business until a major event in that regard. So I actually have a bunch of questions here, so I'm just going to keep rolling them. I'm not sure why it's not
I'll try to give
popping up there.
I'll do quick answers.
Stephanie Hansen, Sales and Ops Director at 6 Ticks. Would you recommend starting with equity ASAP, presumably this employee level equity, or should the business be a particular size?
ASAP, because some of the hardest problems to be solved are in the beginning. The greatest chance for failure is at the beginning. You need to get people solving those hard problems. You don't want to be doing it alone. You don't want to be the only one holding the bag. You want to be on a team of people that are going to, in a diverse way, solve those hard problems. So the sooner is better, in my opinion.
And if I can add one thought to that, if you're going to have a fundraising round, not a securities lawyer, this is not securities advice. If you're going to have a fundraising round and you put in those employee RSUs before, you allot for that before, it's actually going to look good to venture capital, right? Because venture capital is going to force you to put in an option pool anyway. Is that correct?
Yeah, so venture capital wants to make sure that everybody is aligned. What type of pool you use, they don't want to micromanage the founder. They want the founder to make those decisions, but they want to see that the founder isn't, just trying to keep it all for themselves. It just doesn't send the right signals. So yeah, you want to have there's certain norms, of course. Ask ChatGPT, and you'll easily find those answers.
Mark Rickmeyer says, have you seen an increase in ESOPs as companies look to increase ownership options?
Certainly, there's a trend toward there's so many kinds of ownership schemes where ESOPs can be, there could be like buyout kind of where you're giving the real ownership to workers, like that they become voting owners. And that's a bit different from some of the models that Facebook and others use. It's not so much, it's trying to bifurcate control and financial upside so that you're really giving the financial upside but not the control. And then at an exit event, that could be if it's just, it's an acquisition, well, everybody gets cashed out. But if it's an IPO, then the RSUs, they would convert to shares in the stock market. So.
Here's another one, Katerina Kostler. Do you believe everyone can have an ownership mindset, or are there just people or roles that aren't motivated by equity?
I think it depends on leadership.
So basically, yeah, everyone should be motivated by equity.
I think if you want to win, yeah.
Love it. Jesse Rucker, hi Jesse, says, for those who don't have the equity RSU option, what other strategies would you recommend to foster the ownership mindset in a team?
Well, inspiring leadership, right? I mean, if you're an inspiring leader and you can connect with people and show that you're in it with them, and that you will all have a great time learning together or growing together, or you're going to be a great coach to them. Or, hey, I'm going to help you succeed in your career. We're going to practice this, and you're going to be unstoppable in your career. I mean, there's other ways to create alignment and share value.
Here's a question from Jan. There's a lot of them, okay? We don't know why that's not working up there. Jan Kendall de Cruyff, if you're here, Jan, I hope I said that right. Do you believe in a decision democratization and decentralization through an easier access to equity? Like, do you see organizational decision-making also change with this happening?
I think you can. I think there's anything from DAOs down to completely essentially controlled. I think it just depends on the situation. My tendency is earlier on, when you need to move fast and break things, you need to have something that's just a bit more centralized. I've gotten involved in lots of companies where you have so many cooks in the kitchen you can't do anything. So I'm a little bit burned on that. Not to say it can't happen with the right construction, but careful. You want to get to success, and then you want to really share the responsibility and create longevity. But you got to get there first. You got to prove that there's something.
Last one, and this one's a little generic from Forrest Hall, but I like it. What's the future of work prediction you have? We've been so narrow in this talk, right, which has been amazing. But what's more broad? What's a future of work prediction you have for the next 5-10 years?
It's all about alignment, really. I mean, as we get better tools, we can see where the alignment is and where the misalignment is, and where there's misalignment or miscommunication or no communication, that's inefficiency. So I think that's really just all about alignment. And when we have the tools and we can use the whether it's in game dynamics or just the understanding, when you create that alignment, everybody wins. It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Fantastic. It's a win-win-win-win-win for all of us here. Casey, thank you so much.